Hello, Penny. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm so sorry for being late. Some tech issues there.
I just sent an
How
email.
are you?
I'm okay. I think your sound is fine, so I'll just stop that now. Resume recording, and I'll now let people into the session. Thank you very much for your sort of time during this.
That's okay, no problem. Thank you very much. I'm going to start. My name is Rosamond Adukisi Deborah. I'm a clean air advocate. I'm also the WHO advocate for health and air quality.
Rosie, sorry, Rosie, to interrupt you. Can we just give people a couple of minutes just to actually get into the room? Because I think by the time they get settled, and yeah, I think there's a floodgate of about sort of 50 people coming in, and
can we just ask people to mute as well if they're not speaking, so that we can hear the speakers? Yeah.
Yes, I'll mute all. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's session. My name is Dawn Furness. I am muting people as they come into the meeting, and then we will unmute the speakers as they sort of get settled. So I'll just put myself in there. Thank you for joining us. The overview of this afternoon's session is brief introductions from the panel, and then we'll open it out into a wider discussion. So if people have questions for specific members of the panel, either they can put it in the chat and I can read them out, or if they'd feel comfortable enough to sort of putting their hand up. If people look into the reactions section of where the bottom of the Zoom call is, there is a reactions button, and you can raise your hand, which will then alert me in the side. So either way you want to do it, if you can alert by raising your hand if you want to ask a question in person, or if you feel more comfortable typing it into the chat, then I can read it out on your behalf. Thank you very much. So we'll now start with introductions for the panel, and first and foremost, we'd like to introduce everyone for coming here today. And if Rosamond can start by introducing herself and a brief background about who she is and what she's doing. And I'll just
Hello, afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us on International Women's Day. My name is Rosamond Hadukisi Deborah. I am the founder and director of the Ella Roberta Family Foundation. It was set up after my late daughter passed away, and today is actually 8 years to the day she was laid to rest. And if those of you who may not be aware, on December the 16th, she got a landmark victory. She's the first person in the world to have air pollution put on her death certificate. And I'm actually here, believe it or not, to actually learn from these fabulous women here. What does that actually mean, and how I can actually push that forward? Because having air pollution on a death certificate, I feel now is not sufficient. And I am here to learn what more I can use that to do. So I am really excited to introduce my colleague, Jenny Jones, who is a massive supporter of me. And I'm actually here to learn from her. So Jenny, please do introduce yourself.
Thank you, Rosamond, and welcome to everybody. It is really good to do this on International Women's Day, because obviously we all have everybody has a vested interest in clean air. I actually got involved in clean air in fighting air pollution almost exactly 20 years ago, when one of the people I worked with came into my office and said, you know, I'm sure the EU is about to start fining us for stepping over air pollution limits, and that was the very start of it, and it's been a passion ever since. And then I met Simon Burkitt, who is on this call, and he changed my life. And then I met Rosamond, and she changed my life even further. And so for me, air pollution is, of course, as a Green, it's an environmental issue, but it's also a social issue. And I'm afraid sitting in the House of Lords is a huge privilege on one level. On another level, I live in an almost permanent state of fury at the Conservative government that seems unable to grasp that you can't keep building more roads. You just can't. And so air pollution is very much part of my day-to-day life. Perhaps I should move on, and or someone else will introduce the next speaker.
In that case, I'll just go by the layout on my screen. Could I introduce Pony Hosey, please?
Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to you all on International Women's Day. My name is Penny Hosey, and I'm a clean air advocate and journalist, and I'm delighted this conversation will highlight and celebrate women's action and advocacy to drive forward the clean air conversations. A little bit of personal detail about me. Rosamond and I met about 3 or 4 years ago at school event, and we've been friends ever since. I became very interested in air quality because of her, and also meeting Simon Burkett. I think that was kind of instrumental in me gaining greater awareness and writing lots of articles on air quality. And I think once you know about it, you just can't stop thinking about it. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Maria Neira, who I'll always remember the fact that she said there were 70,000 papers citing air quality as an issue when I wrote my piece, and I'm sure there are definitely in excess of 100,000 by now.
Thank you, Penny, and so nice to be with all of you. I cannot imagine a better way to celebrate this International Day than having an action discussion with that incredible woman. I feel so inspired by all of you, and of course Rosamund has as well changed my life when she came. Not only her, I was very much inspired by the twins. They were talking and enjoying our horrible session, very boring session at the World Health Organization. They were so quiet, so wise, so well done, Rosie. The kids are amazing, and they are real clean air fighters as well. I'm working at the World Health Organization, and I don't remember exactly when I decided that this was one cause that I will never give up on it. I think maybe everything started because I was trained as a medical doctor, and my first experience was on a refugee camp in Central America, where I was trying to be a real doctor, means treating patients. That was my objective of the day. So I had a little clinic where children were coming with moms and all of that. And I realized it took me only 2-3 weeks to realize that I was treating the same child with the same pathology, until I say, okay, I cannot keep treating asthma and not understanding why this child has such an acute attack of asthma. So it was just 5 minutes to go to his place, and then everything was so obvious. And I decided that, okay, I want to treat asthma cases, but I want to make sure that I will reduce the causes of this problem, the same with the diarrhea and lack of safe water. So for me, I became a public health officer with all my passion and all my soul. And since then, I think air pollution, because of the unacceptable 7 million deaths, and as you say, the 70,000, at least, there are probably now many more, published every day, adding evidence on how air pollution is killing us and making us less intelligent and making our life miserable and causing a lot of chronic diseases, I say, okay, basta. Basta is a Spanish expression, and I am Spanish by nationality. So happy to use it every day and see, okay, what can I do to make this stop? Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Andrew Carey Fuller, who is my friend and colleague from the Green Party, and to explain a bit about the Tide Mill campaign she's working on. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I just thought before we started this recording this event, we were just talking behind the scenes about sort of how this event sort of was sort of put together last minute, because we wanted to start the conversation, as Penny has said, but I suddenly thought that I haven't really said, you know, why I feel so passionately about air pollution. And for 4 years, I campaigned to save a wildlife garden in Deptford, which was actually creating a wonderful oasis of cleaner air in a very urban environment for a lot of people. And sadly, we didn't win our case. We even went to the High Court, Maria, to try and save it, and we didn't win our case. And then shortly afterwards, I met Rosie, and like you all, I was inspired by her. So I've only known Rosie for about 3 years now, but the moment I met her and, you know, found out about her story with Ella and everything else, I've been in awe of her and everything that she's done. And we've become good friends as well. And I just want to find a way to work with her and you all and more women and more people to actually try and pull back this crisis on air pollution. We've got the sort of health pandemic that's silent and invisible, but as you say, Maria, kills so many people, and see what we can do to make a difference working together. So that's why I'm here, and that's why we've started this process today. So let's see where we go from here. Okay, should we hand over to Penny now, maybe to start the conversation with some questions or issues that we can discuss and answer collectively?
Oh, thank you, Andrea. I had a bit of a script prepared, but I'm probably, for timing, I'm going to move away from that. And also, it's just so inspiring to hear everybody's introduction. And I suppose with COP26 turning the world's attention onto air quality, I think it's really important that, you know, we have this conversation, and it continues in a really positive way, and it has to include women. I think there needs to be less talk and more action. I know we're talking today, but I do feel that, you know, there is so much to discuss. And I know that Rosamund's case is important, but I wanted to start with Dr. Maria Neira, because her background in public health gives us so much insight into the adverse effect air quality has on people's lives. There's been lots of deaths from COVID, but every year, about 8.8 million people die prematurely from air quality, poor air quality. That's a staggering figure. So I wonder, Dr. Maria Neira, if you can please tell us, how does the environment affect women and children's daily lives, and do they bear a disproportionate health burden from air pollution?
Yeah, thank you. It's you know, every day I ask myself why in the history of public health we have such an incredible cases. You know, we have almost 8 million deaths, premature deaths caused by air pollution. We have 7 million deaths caused by tobacco. We have almost 13 million deaths caused by environmental risk factors that can be prevented. Are we panicking? Are we doing something dramatic? Is people going out and say, hey, wait, stop, we need to do something definite about this. We need to take decisions. We need to change our life, because this cannot be gone. You know, there are too many millions of deaths, plus the diseases that are caused for that, which are very chronic diseases, most of them, that if you want to look only to the economic consequences of that, and sometimes politicians, they might consider those economic arguments. Here we are, you have even very strong economic arguments. We are giving $400 billion to pay subsidies to fossil fuels, and we don't realize that we pay $5 trillion in terms of health costs to cover the consequences of the exposure to air pollution. So this type of irrational approaches is something that, for me as a public health officer, I don't have a space to digest it. I mean, I don't see it, you know. For me, now that we need to recover from COVID-19, which has been an exceptional crisis, non-precedent, name it, it paralyzed the society, but we need to recover from that. And if we need to recover from COVID-19, we need to increase and accelerate access to clean sources of energy. Stop using fossil fuels, please. They are killing us. My dream will be one day go to the petrol station and see, like in the tobacco package, you know, you say tobacco kills, go to the petrol station, say gasoline kills you. And that, I think, is dramatic, but I think if people might wake up a little bit understanding that this has to stop. We need to stop polluting whatever we touch. And this is extremely urgent. So globally, we want to go to COP26 as the health argument. And in fact, we are preparing a report that will be called the health argument for climate change. And the health argument is very simple. If you tackle the causes of climate change, there will be an overlap with the causes of air pollution, so you can contribute enormously to reduce those million deaths, 7 million deaths caused by exposure to air pollution every year. So you decide how many deaths you want to reduce. How many deaths, as a politician, are you ready to take on board and say and assume that you will be responsible for that, or the other way around? If you put it in positive, how many lives are you saving? And in addition to that, how much are you contributing to the economic recovery, which is fundamental now and we all desperately need it. So here is the opportunity. Fight climate change will result on fighting air pollution. It will result on saving lives and promoting an economy and society. What else do you need? I mean, in addition to that, throw in all of you tons of papers, evidence, scientific evidence that we have in all the aspects that unfortunately air pollution is not only killing us, as I say, it's destroying our neurodevelopment now, is destroying, I mean, it's causing degenerative diseases. I don't want to name it because it's very sad, but I want to put it in positive. If you stop this nonsense, you will save lives, you will save money, you will save diseases, and you will save those hospitals to be paralyzed, and you will save the horrible frustration that the health professionals we are now feeling. So over.
Dr. Neera mentioned there the political solution. Perhaps now is a good time to bring in Baroness Denny Jones, about how we can actually sort of use politics and the mechanism of the sort of infrastructure that we have in the UK to actually tackle these problems.
Thank you, Dawn. Well, it's obvious that we can tackle it at every level of politics, and it's important that we do, because I'm actually doing stuff in the House of Lords, and I've got a Clean Air Act, thanks to Simon Burkitt, who set all that up. And at some point that will be debated, and I will be able to lay all these arguments out. But also we have to start at local councils. It's where decisions are made about losing woodland, losing gardens, and it's where as well decisions are made about things like fireworks. It's very easy, we must blame fossil fuels, and we've got to stop fossil fuels, but there's other sources of air pollution as well. And just as an aside, I do tend not to talk about air quality anymore, because I tend to say that air quality is what we haven't got, it's our aim, but what we have is air pollution. And as Maria has said, it's global. And so there are other sources, for example, ammonia from agriculture, the spraying of fields and so on. And we have to be aware that it's all interlinked, and so we obviously need less traffic. I mean, that's a very obvious thing to say. But also heating systems in a city like London, they also pollute, and so we have to think. We can't just talk about one source of pollution. We actually have to think about it in the round and tackle it at every level of government. So you should be saying to your councillors, or whatever structure you have, if you're international, you should be saying to them, well, what are you doing about it? And just keep raising it. And the key to success in politics is often just repetition and never giving up. And so if you talk about it long enough, something will happen. When I first started talking about air pollution with journalists, they often couldn't get clearance from their editors to actually put it on the show, because the editors would go, who cares about that? But now people do talk about it, and they do understand just how much of a problem it is. So I would say contact everybody you know at every level of politics and make sure they understand the problem.
Thank you, Jenny. We have a question with it. Oh, sorry, was that Penny responding to that?
Yeah, if that's okay, I think it'd be a good time to bring in Rosamond, really, because firstly, congratulations on getting the inquest you've long been working for with another amazing woman, Jocelyn Cockburn, Rosamond. And I think what I wanted to ask you, the coroner said that the government was in breach of UK guidelines and Ella's right to life was breached. It was a really historic victory, but there's no guarantee of the outcome. How did you stay on track and so focused?
I think I'll have to give credit to my children on that one. I do actually feel for them. I mean, I think it's always good when I get an opportunity to explain to people what it means when a child is chronically ill. I don't think people actually understand that. And I think now people have a better idea actually. Sadly, since COVID. So if you've seen any of the reports on television about COVID, people in hospital, and try and imagine Ella going through that for 2.5 years. We don't know how she managed to survive for that long. Her lungs were similar to that of a smoker when she died. They were that horrendous. And I think people still don't quite understand what exposure to air pollution actually means. I think some people think it might, you might have 6 months, you might have 18 months. If you have someone who is already ill, unfortunately, just coming out and breathing congestion, even that can have an impact on them. If you speak to people with COPD and things like that, they will tell you about that. I think my thing going forward, how did we do it? I don't know. It was a really hard battle to actually prove it. It is not as simple as people think. I think luckily for me, and I don't know why, I was telling Andrea and Co before everyone came on here. It's exactly eight years for today. Ella was buried. I don't know what the time. Yeah, we were at the cemetery by now, exactly 80 years ago, and it's something I don't think I will ever come to terms with. And I think, why do I do what I do? I do what I do because I know Ella is not the only child affected. Just in London, every year we have up to 12 children still die from asthma. And I think the emergency, the public health crisis, people still don't get it. And I think the reason why I say that is I got myself into an almighty battle last year with my own council. And, I adore Lewisham, but I think when so much traffic was pushed onto the same South Circular, that brought my daughter's life to a short end. And I thought, oh, they really do not understand what's going on. And it's really unfortunate to say, today of all days, as lockdown has eased, my phone is full of messages this morning from locals again saying, Ros, lockdown is easing, kids are going back, and it's absolutely gridlocks. And before you came, I was saying to Dr. Niera, what that actually means to everyone on here, give it about 10 days and A&E will be filling up again. And I think maybe it's because these children, they are not seen. My own children are not out of danger. And those of you that follow me, you know how strongly I have suggested this, especially as the coroner has told us there is a genetic link. And I think what makes people say you don't get angry. Well, what does make me angry, my friends would tell you, is the whole idea of having to move my children, of having to maybe move schools and all sorts of things just so they can breathe. And by the way, they are not the only ones. There are hundreds of children around where we live. So there's lots and lots and lots of talk, and there's very little action. And if there's anyone from the government on here listening, the least I am asking is that WHO guidelines are actually implemented. If it means I have to beg, because what that would mean is children's lives will be saved if these guidelines are but everyone needs to take it seriously. It's not about pointing fingers. Obviously, government have enormous influence on this, and they can do a lot. But it's what about we do as a family, every individual do. It's about what councils do, and it's what about mayors do. Air pollution is everybody's problem. I think it's about 20 billion. Well, I'm sure someone will correct me. And it's about things like wood burning. If you live in an urban area, why on earth would you be burning wood? Everyone always thinks, oh, what I'm doing is okay. It's not okay. We all have to care about each other. And COVID COVID, I think last time I checked, it was 2.5 million people that have died in the last year from COVID. But the last stats I've read on air pollution, the Guardian showed 8.8 million in 2019 died prematurely courtesy of air pollution. And I don't know what more we need to do for people to know this is a public health emergency. We've had the conversations again and again and again, but it is so slow. I think I want action like yesterday. And I'm prepared to work with everyone, all governments, all colours. This, to me, this isn't everybody I'm prepared to work with, because there are a lot of children, by the way, 1.1 children in this country have asthma, and it's the most common reason before COVID why children went home, because they were suffering from asthma. So I beg of people who they have the conversation, but they don't really do what I think they need to do. And those are the decision makers. They know what needs to be done. Polluting busy roads where children are already ill is not the solution. Ask any doctor. And that's all I have to say for now on this matter.
No, absolutely. It's a real health burden, and it's a pressing.
Penny, you're mute.
Sorry, thank you. Yes, thank you for that, Rosamond. I think you're right to raise those issues of equity and also the voices that aren't normally heard. I just wanted to ask about the Environment Bill, because in the UK, the Environment Bill was pushed back. And although lots of people were disappointed, some see it as an opportunity to improve matters.
You're mute again, sorry.
Sorry. Baroness Jenny Jones, I know you're passionate about all of this, and I just wondered your view on pushing back the Environment Bill. When do you think it will come back? And do you think the government should adopt the World Health Organizational guidelines?
Well, yes, of course, the government should adopt the WHO guidelines, but we have absolutely no idea at the moment when the bill is coming to Parliament. And this is very frustrating because, of course, it started and stopped and started and stopped. And quite honestly, if the government can't get it together before COP26, I think it's going to look a little bit embarrassing for them. And so at the moment, we don't know. I will, of course, and amongst others, like Rosamond, I work with anyone who sort of points in the same direction. We will be talking about air pollution. It will be in the bill. I want to talk about not just outdoor air pollution, but indoor air pollution as well. So definitely, there will be movement, I hope, with the Environment Bill, but who knows when it's going to come up, hopefully before COP26.
No, that's really good to know. Thank you. In terms of all the women's groups that are involved in getting clean air out there, there's so much good work that's happening at the moment. Rosamond, can I bring you in to talk about that, all the women's groups that are working to clean the air?
You're mute, Rosamond.
I think something I've sort of learned as I've gone on is to find that women, again, are disproportionately affected. Sorry, my phone keeps on going off. It's people sending me messages about local traffic, by the way. This is what people tend to do all the time. I apologize about that. And Global Action Plan, I actually must thank them. They are actually going to carry this interview on their platform tomorrow. But this is something that disproportionately, sorry, I'm just going to mute this because it just keeps on going off. You know, from my family are from Ghana, and we also have our own source of air pollution, because it's an International Women's Day. I do want to give a shout out to them over there. For us, air pollution over there, it's more to do with cooking. That's what so air pollution is something, and asthma is a worldwide problem. And it doesn't surprise me, by the way, that women are disproportionately affected again. I'm not surprised by that. But I think what I wanted to talk about really is, it seems even in London, there's a sort of divide, depending on where you live, will depend on the air that you breathe. This is really controversial. By the way, I don't see it as being controversial because my background in psychology, I know all about inequality in health. And I think rather than dodge things, we need to address things and actually discuss it. The communities, I was speaking to someone in Newham about the air pollution over there and how much it sort of affects the children, especially over there. And I think we can talk about these things freely. There was a program on recently about COVID and the impact it is having again on people from Black and Asian heritage. And maybe, for instance, my children are in both camps, so I see these conversations as quite normal to sort of say. I think it is the fear of discussing them. I don't think, but I think, may I ask again that local people, citizens, are part of the solution. Look, what people don't like, I am learning, is they don't like things being done to them. They want to be part of the solution. So that's another, you know, maybe Stephen and I, and that's Stephen Holgate, the expert witness in my daughter's case, we've talked about monitoring and how maybe monitoring will give people a better understanding about the air pollution in their areas. And I think this is an actual way forward, having local people monitoring the air pollution in their area, and they will feel as if they are in control of it. But I think to shy away from difficult conversations is not the way forward. We, you know, and I always talk about my lived experience. And I think what I do get frustrated with, Penny, is when someone comes up and say, that is not true. And I do hope that those that listen to Ella's inquest would have understand what we were talking about. I wouldn't talk about something if it wasn't actually true. And people need, I know it might make people feel uncomfortable. I showed people when my younger daughter had to go on a nebulizer last year because of what was going on. And I think it really did upset someone when I showed that picture, but I do apologize for things like that. Sometimes you just have to do things like that so people can truly understand it wasn't done on purpose, but I think someone was denying it was actually going on. And I said, look, this is what's going on, and this is what you are not seeing. And I know a few people were really, really upset, and I did actually apologize to her even for actually doing, but people need to understand. I think I keep on saying exposure to air pollution. That's what people need to understand, and the health impacts. Look, when Ella became ill, she was almost dying. We will never, ever, ever know when her illness actually started. Stephen believes by the time it came out, it was game over. She was literally dying. It might have started from when she was a baby. And we do know that babies in prams and things like that but I've noticed here, there seems to be things about main roads, and it is as if it is acceptable to push traffic on main roads. There are real human beings who actually live on these main roads, and yes, they tend to be poorer on a whole. There's no point getting out diagrams to try and show me that, you know, black people live here or Asian people live here, so this isn't true. They are telling you they're being impacted, and you just need to take it on, and we just need to find solutions for it. And also, the poorest people, they are not the ones creating the most air pollution, and this is true worldwide. It's not just in the UK. This is true of everywhere.
Regarding the question of monitoring about these systems near the main roads where you're getting these pollution black spots, would that be perhaps a National Health Service initiative, or would that be a local council initiative, or is that something the residents can organise themselves? Perhaps you can hear from Dr. Maria or Jenny Jones on that, the monitoring side.
Yeah, I think if I can go back to the issue of the sources of pollution, I think it's very important to stress that each country or city, they need to do the evaluation of where this pollution is coming from. And it's clear that in some European countries, still we have this issue with the coal and the wood burn at the domestic level, which is, for different reasons, we will not get into that now. But for half of the population around the planet, it's, as Rosamund was saying, it's an issue of fuels for cooking, heating, and lighting in the house. They are still using biomass and open fires in some occasions. So this is a topic that we need to accelerate, as I say, the transition to clean fuels at the global level, and stop burning wood in Europe, in countries where other solutions exist. So an assessment of what are the sources of pollution, which is in general traffic, wood burning, and the use of the fossil fuels and then agricultural practices in most of the cases. Once you have that, yes, monitoring will be very important, but provided you have a monitor linked to action, otherwise people get used. Remember a few years ago, it was very powerful, this announcement at the American Embassy in Beijing. It was this announcement every day saying how many, whether we were in red in terms of pollution or not. That was really, from an advocacy point of view, was very powerful. People started to say, wow, I'm breathing very polluted air according to WHO standards. I'm going beyond that and that. But you get kind of used at one point. So my point is, monitoring is extremely important for people to understand and remind them that this is affecting their health, but provided that that alert is always linked to some action and commitments by the mayor or the citizens then putting a lot of pressure on politicians saying, hey, this is very high, you need to do something about, no choice about. So we need to make sure that those advocacy movements are linked to something else. I'm always very shocked. I talk to journalists. Most of them are very much educated. They know and they write a lot about air pollution. And I have to say that every day, one of the most important newspapers around the world are talking about air pollution and impact on health. However, I'm still shocked with some journalists around the world talking about air pollution when I tell them about the millions of deaths associated to air pollution, say, can you repeat that as well? Are you talking about millions or thousands? No, I said millions. How can it be possible that I didn't know? How can it be possible that this is not the topic of a big debate? Or, I mean, why are we not doing much more? If you're talking, are you sure that there are millions? I said, more than sure. So it's still a lot about raising awareness about how exposure to air pollution is having such a horrible impact on our health. And we have even tools to calculate in each city saying, okay, if the level of exposure to air pollution are such, look at the number of deaths for which you are accountable. So we need to make people accountable for the number of deaths, or as I said before, putting it in positive and making them accountable for the number of lives that they are saving. That could be, now it depends on your level of ambition and the speed to which you are taking those actions to reduce air pollution. It's up to you to tell your citizens saying, okay, we could reduce 1 million deaths, but we are reducing only half in 2 years. Tell your citizens, but we need to have this type of conversation because the interventions to tackle air pollution exist. And they can even good, as I say, for the economic recovery that we need. Over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Neera. I think last week, the UK government was found guilty, when we're talking about accountability, by the European Court of Justice for systemically and persistently breaching air pollution limits. This wasn't the first time they've been taken to court.
You're on mute, Penny.
Sorry, that keeps happening. I just wondered if I could bring in Baroness Jenny Jones to talk about this action that took place last week, because I think it's important in terms of accountability.
Penny, first of all, please call me Jenny. And secondly, I don't know very much about that action, I'm afraid. So I don't know anyone else on the panel who does. I just wanted to reinforce what Maria and Rosamund have been saying, that you have to monitor, and it's really good if you can get local people involved as well, because they understand the size of the problem. When Boris Johnson was mayor, I think there were only 2 monitoring stations in London that the EU recognised, and one of them had an intake on an extremely polluted road at 15 foot in the air. That's sort of a lot of meters, Maria. And it meant that it wasn't really measuring very much. And one of the things about reducing pollution is about getting people out of their cars. And dear old Ken Livingstone, who's lost status these days, when he was mayor of London, he made it clear that there had to be stick and carrot. And so the stick was the congestion charge, which actually operated quite well from an air pollution reduction in way. And secondly, he just massively improved the bus services so that people had an alternative. They didn't have to take their cars. And also, of course, he did lots for cycling as well. And that's basically what we have to do, carrot and stick, and just encourage. And electric vehicles are not, they're a tiny part of the answer, but they are not the answer. There's still tire and brake wear. There's still cobalt mined by children inside them. And so electric vehicles, a tiny bit of the solution, but not the whole solution.
May I come in here? Hello?
I was going to move to a question in the chat that's come from Sarah Biggins, since we were talking about road pollution specifically. She says, when traffic is at a standstill in the Blackwell Tunnel, signs display a turn off your engine notice. I think it's the same at the Rotherham Hill Tunnel. Hytherton, is it worth agitating in local places where traffic often comes to a standstill for similar signage until we get to the point where diesel and petrol engines are off the road? And that's to anyone who wishes to answer it.
I would say yes, straight away. Idling is one of the worst things ever, by the way. It's terrible idling. So yes, and also modern cars, I don't know how long you would need to sit in one before they naturally turn off the engine automatically, but that is a massive yes to that. And one thing I actually realized, was it last week I actually realized now, I was filming something on the South Circular, interesting enough, and you could hear the engines. There was idling, but guess what? You couldn't see anything. So years ago, where you could see black soot or whatever used to come out of the exhaust pipe, and I'm waiting for someone to correct me on here. Is it that modern cars now you actually can't see it? Because I could hear the idling signs, but interestingly enough, I couldn't see anything. So I don't know whether that again gives the impression that cars are clean. And I agree with Jenny about the tire and brake wear. And I know you've spoken to Frank Kelly, haven't you, Penny? And he has said Frank Kelly is one of the leading people on air pollution in this country, in case people don't know who I'm talking about. And he has spoken about tire and brake wear. But my thing again is talking about the invisibility of air pollution. And I think we need to be very mindful of that. Yeah, I was on the South for about half an hour and you literally couldn't see anything, and you get yourself into a false sense of security that everything is okay when it's not okay. And idling, I think, is one of the worst, because in the area that idling happens, air pollution goes up by I think about between 50 and 60%, depending on which paper you read. And that is why school streets were brought in, that out of school, in front of schools and around schools, switch off your engine. And I don't know how many times we've had to say this, and especially with schools back again this morning, and those parents that have to, for whatever reason, and I have been pulled up that not all children can walk and cycle, because there are disabled children, and I should know that, having a daughter who was severely disabled. So some people do need to take their child to school for reasons. It might be for disability, and they can't, but please switch those engines off, because they are terrible, for young lungs. And we keep on saying this again and again and again, but I'm learning from Jenny Jones just now. She has said it doesn't matter how many times you say it, so I'm going to keep on repeating it then. Penny.
Hello.
A really good point you've made about pollution being invisible, and I wanted to talk to Dr. Neera about the fact that because it's International Women's Day, why are so many young women dying from lung cancer linked to air quality? I just wondered what your view is on that, please.
Well, exposure to air pollution, one of the causes of mortality is because it increased the lung cancer. So it's one of the causes of mortality, lung cancer. And the impact on a young woman is not only increasing the lung cancer, is as well on the moment she's pregnant as well, how this will be, even the fetus will be exposed to air pollution, even before the baby was born, it will be born, is already affected. I mean, the neurodevelopment is already affected. So imagine that those toxic air is getting into your lungs, and then they even cross the placenta barrier, and it gets to the brain of the little fetus. So I think this is something that as a woman, I will be very much concerned about, and gives me an extra vulnerability. I was reading now on people proposing and on the chat the very nice ideas. One of them saying, sending alerts to the watch of the people, saying, or sending an SMS to their telephone saying, you are on a zone where the levels of pollution are very high. This is a very, technologically speaking, nice, and probably raising awareness is a very important one. The only thing I wouldn't like this to end up is by passing the responsibility to the citizen. So I receive an SMS on my phone, so I know that I'm on a zone which is with high levels of air pollution. So it's up to me to select another way to go to my work or to go around that street or something like that. Unless we use those alerts to really put pressure on our politicians and use it as a measure to see whether the decisions and the legislation and the action taken and the extremely low emission zone and things like initiatives like that, whether they are successful and they are going into the right direction. On the equity issue, I think we have another way to have a higher impact on women as well. I think it's a question, it's very simple. Everybody's affected by air pollution. If you live on a city, you cannot choose the level of pollution. However, if you live on one part of the city where pollution, I mean, where the traffic is definitely more congested, or because people have less economic intake and they use to heat the house, they use wood, or they use it for what they think is an environmentally friendly thing, then we have a problem. And solutions and options, they need to be offered. The public transport. I remember in Mexico, not to use the sample of London that you all know very well, but in Mexico, they decided at one point to remove very old cars from the streets, which is a very good initiative, but what a coincidence. Who have old cars are not the rich people that they will have for other options. It's a very low, I mean, economically, very low income level people. So we need as well to be conscious of this equity issue. But as Rosamund said, we have things that we can do immediately. Tell the parents to stop, I mean, to stop the engine while dropping the children. Explain to people that burning wood is nothing environmentally friendly. It might be cozy, but definitely not environmentally friendly. It's one of the biggest causes of air pollution in cities like London or countries like UK. So we need to do something about that. I see that Simon is with us, and he probably knows very much about this case that on the court of UK not respecting the levels of pollution. So over to you, Penny. You decide who you give the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wondered if we could sort of talk about maybe in terms of moving things forward, whether there's a case for a law that says it's a human right for everyone to breathe clean air, or should it perhaps be a children's law? Would that be more palatable to the public? I suppose this ties into the World Health Organizational guidelines as well. These are going to be revised, Dr. Neera. So I suppose there are a couple of questions there. Could you please tell us about the revision of the World Health WHO guidelines, and also whether there should be a children's law? I can throw that out to the wider panel as well.
Yeah, we are, as you know, under a very thoughtful revision of the air quality guidelines. The expert review and the systematic review has been finalized. Now it's a question of just going through the process of finalizing the document and making sure that we go through all of that. I cannot anticipate how the levels will be, but probably we should expect even something more restrictive. And if everything goes well, I hope that by May, we will be able to have the new revised guidelines. Of course, our call is to all governments to try, I would say, to endorse the air quality guidelines, the WHO air quality guidelines as the minimum, because in fact, there are no safe levels, but at the minimum, endorsing the air quality guidelines. Is it easy in some occasions? Probably not, but it's certainly, again, it depends of your level of ambition and how much you want to protect the people's life and moving into this transformation, in this transition at the city level and the urban level that is so much needed. And whether it should be a law, we have a tobacco framework convention. Why not having a clean air convention one of these days? And I will certainly convene a group of specialists on this to tell us whether this is feasible and we should move forward, and whether this will be a strong push for our cause on clean air. Okay.
Can I
Perhaps we could hear from Simon Burkett on the issues regarding. Sorry, Angie, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that because it's in the UK, it's going to be really interesting, and perhaps Jenny might have a view on this as well, because obviously we have the Human Rights Act, and in terms of Rosamund's case, Ella's inquest, Articles 2, you know, in terms of right to life, and Articles 8, right to family life, were invoked, and the government breached those. As we know, there's a UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, and under Article 6, children have a right to life under that. And there's other articles that relate to their health and well-being generally, and you know, them having a right to healthy environments. And it'll be quite an interesting question to see in terms of Ella's Law going forward. You know, this idea of creating Ella's Law for clean air here, which direction that's going to go in, and which one will have more support from the public, because there are lots of sort of misinterpretations and negative thoughts and thinking around human rights sometimes, because people see it attached to all sorts of things that are there for good, but the press doesn't normally put it out that way. And obviously although we've signed up to the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, we don't have a children's rights law, which we really need in this country. So that's, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there as something that will need to be looked at and resolved going forward for Ella's Law.
I better say something, haven't I, about that? Those of you that have been following the case, the case hasn't completed, and the reason why it's taken so long is sadly because of COVID and the amount of deaths. The coroner obviously is the same coroner that has to register the deaths. I am listening. I don't know whether my lawyer is on the line at all. If she's not, we are still thinking about it. It sounds good, clean air being a human right, but I think people can probably understand that these things take years and years and years. And where I am is I want something winnable. We've already done 7 years. I don't have the energy. No one's going to be surprised at that, to keep going for another 7 years. So I'm looking at what is going to be more winnable, what is going to sit well with the public, what is going to help us get governments, and I say that plural so people don't think it's just the UK government, the governments everywhere. You know, I will take advice from WHO and organizations like that. We haven't finally decided what Ella's Law is going to be, but it will be about the prevention of future deaths, and the coroner will be making his recommendations soon, obviously when the number of deaths subside. But for me, there's no point campaigning and not getting anywhere. I actually want to do something because children are still dying. So for me, it's going to be, I'm very practical like that. And the other thing also is, I must say here, just in case you hear I've taken any action or anything, it won't be because there's someone nastily put on Twitter that my family is after some big payday. Trust me, you wouldn't go through what we've been through for 8 years for some payday. It's because I still feel that after even getting it on Ella's death certificate, nothing is still being done. And that's why I will act, because I'm only human. There's no point just battling for the sake of battling. Sometimes you need to take action, and it's not going to sit well with everyone, but I always have to do what I think is right in my daughter's memory. And up until a medical doctor says to me, children are no longer dying, I'm not going to rest. And people need to understand that I still talk to medical doctors all the time, and children are still dying. They continue to die. And if I take action, that will be the reason why. And you have actually heard it from my mouth instead of picking it up from a newspaper. I will take action if I feel nothing's being done. There's no point just having air pollution on Ella's death certificate and nothing happening about it. You know, we want to see the prevention of future deaths, and Ella's Law will be looking to head in that direction. I would do, you know, I am one person, and I am always going to call upon your support, because on my own I won't be able to do it, and I do require the support of everyone, and especially people like Jenny in the Houses of Lords and Simon and people like that who advise me. So again, this is my opportunity, or my first opportunity, to say thank you to people who have continued to support. And it's incredibly complicated. It is not straightforward, but we hope we will get there. And we hope it's not going to take 4 years like the Clean Air Act in the 1950s. We really hope it's not going to take that long. Penny.
I think Simon's waiting to come in. Do you
Where's Simon?
Yeah.
It'd be good to hear from him. A good man to end Women's International Day. Where is Simon?
I'm here. You can never get rid of me. You are such an amazing group. You're a really inspiring group, and it's great that this is being recorded. Just a few things in terms of next steps, that some ideas. The legal case, the European judgment was really important. It highlighted the fact that the UK has been in breach for 10 years, but also has not taken action to tackle the problems, not taken sufficient action. So 2 important judgments, and that affects not just the UK, even though we've left Europe formally, but also the rest of Europe. The second thing is that at a UN level, David Boyd, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment, is pushing and championing the right to a healthy and sustainable environment at the UN. And I think that would be a really great focus for us all to push on. In relation to a new Clean Air Act, Clean Air in London has drafted a Clean Air Current and Future Health of Current and Future Generations Act. I don't think we need to add in new human rights to it, because there are powerful existing human rights, which is exactly part of the case that was successful for Ella. We have those existing human rights. So that new Clean Air Act should decarbonize homes and other buildings, as we did so successfully in 1956. And the last thing, I think, which is a great international point for such a fabulous panel, is that Clean Air in London has analysed over 6 million tweets, 25 million engagements which have mentioned air pollution or COP26 over the last 12 months. And staggeringly to me, justice, which includes equality, gender, and so on, is ranked 16th out of 20 different topics that we've done this analysis on. And I think it would be really great if, like perhaps Claire O'Neill earlier today, who was at the previous COP26 president, said, is that for COP26 to really push for all delegations participating in COP26 to be gender balanced, that sort of thing is important, and get across the messages that women's, that climate change does affect women disproportionately, and get some real change out of that. So I think this is a very exciting year. I think there's lots to do, and you're an amazing group of people. So thank you for speaking today.
Thank you very much, Simon. I'm aware that we are now after 2 o'clock. We did say this is going to be finishing at 2 o'clock. I'm assuming that other people might have sort of family commitments to get to. Would people like to discuss these issues a little bit further? What I was going to suggest is that we take the information on the chat and all the references that have been put in there and put them into a newsletter. People can opt in to getting sort of like circular and update information, because I think it's very important that we take the next step to do action on the discussion. So what I would suggest is that we sort of form some kind of campaigning group on air pollution, that we just sort of keep the chat and the conversation going, either through email or newsletter or a Slack group, and that we start to sort of have this as an ongoing thing where we can actually start to implement things rather than talking about things. I think a lot of the frustrations that have been coming up in today's session have been that there's a lot of discussion, but we need actually things to be doing and things to be put into place and implemented. So I think, unless anyone has any huge objections, I would like to thank everyone for their time this afternoon. It's been incredibly informative. And that if people wish to put their Twitter handles in the chat, then we can have that shared with the group. There have been some questions about individual contacts for members and the panelists. If they wish to share that information, or if they have any public emails that they want to share with people, they can put that in the chat or put their Twitter handle in the chat and they can continue. But I think if we have an opt-in group, that we then have a sort of an email distribution list that people can then contact each other and then keep this conversation going, because I think it's hugely important. So I'd like to thank our panelists this evening, Rosamond Andrea, Maria, Jenny, Penny, and obviously Simon at the end there. Thank you very much for participating in this. It's been incredibly informative. The recording will be available online, and we will share that, particularly with people who've registered for the group. We'll send out the information in the chat at the end. So thank you very much for your participation. We will hang around if anyone wants to have any informal conversations or just sort of a general discussion. But we did say it would finish at 2 o'clock, and we are aware that people have family commitments to get to, with it being International Women's Day. So thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of International Women's Day 2021.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Women's International Day.
Happy day, happy week, happy year to all of you.
Yes, let's find a way to sort of get some key messages through at COP26 that you're saying, linking with climate change and everything else. It would be great. I don't know if there's some kind of, is there like a strategic group that is working on preparing anything to put forward at COP in terms of putting pressure on, as Simon was saying, to get all of the delegates to go back and then to actually start their sort of country action plans to sort of do something? I don't know what there is.
There is a group in preparation for the COP26 bringing the health argument. So I will be happy to reconnect with you and make sure that you are part of that group. Yes.
That would be fantastic, Maria.
Absolutely, I will do it. Yes, Marina Mayero and our champion, Rose Moon, I'm sure she knows how to get in touch with us, isn't she?
Yeah, don't worry, I will make sure she gets your stuff, don't worry. Thank you very much for joining us, Maria. It's good to see you. And
at the contrary, a privilege for me. Yes.
In Geneva soon. Once I get my vaccine. Am I allowed to talk about vaccines on here? Well, anyway,
it's all part of our health. Our health, Rosamund, is
I get my well, there's so much debate about vaccines. I'm quite mindful when I talk about it.
No, I know.
Yeah, when I get my vaccine, I will be over in Geneva. And thank you very much for joining us. And it's been great. It's been great.
Thank you all.
And I thank everybody else as well who stayed. We had over 50 people. That's amazing. I can see Nell. Lovely to see you, Nell. Happy today. And Catherine as well. I can see Catherine on my screen, and it's lovely. Yeah, I think like it's very true. We need to demand more action, and I think it's now or never with COP26, really, isn't it? If we can't get a lot of the demands this year, then I'll start to really, really worry about it. Oh, hello, Nita. Yeah, I'm meant to get in contact with you. I'm well aware of that. But no, that's my big thing. That we form. You are right, Andrea, we do something to get to, because there's a lot of conversation about the gender balance at COP26, and I am aware of it, but it's so difficult to get involved in every debate going. I really need to remain at tunnel vision sometimes what I'm doing and not to get sidetracked with things. But I am aware, as people say, there's not enough females, at the head table at COP26. So we need to find a way of redressing. I know sometimes people think, don't I see these things? I do, but I am one person, and sometimes I just have to choose my battles. Sometimes that's really what it's about. You can't do every single battle, really.
We need to clone you, Rosie.
But that's why it's good, Rosamund. If there's something started, as Maria said, there's already a group that's already working on this. It's not down to any one person. It's collectively things that we can do together. And and if there's an opportunity to input into that and make that voice stronger at COP, then we've got to do it this year, because as you say, COP26 this year is a crucial one. Yes, exactly. Especially with Ella's inquest coming after COVID, and sort of, as you say, things carry on as normal post-COVID and countries that are getting back on their feet. We've got to say, no, we need to readjust again. We need to readjust. We need to look at the practices and see if we can really do something. And the whole planning and housing and development, building industry is a big part of that as well. And we've got to do something. It's terrible that we've got pregnant women that are exposed to air pollution that's affecting even unborn children now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, let alone the ones that are here. So Anyway, I mean, there's so much we know, there's so many different conversations to have around air pollution. It's such a wide subject, but somehow we've got to tackle it head on. And as Maria says, go for the key main sources and actually get some really severe action on those, and get our governments everywhere to do more so that we can actually get somewhere near clean air. And you know, we need cleaner air until we get to that really clean air that everyone should get access to.
Can I thank Dawn, please? Can I quickly thank Dawn? Dawn has been the technical person who was brought on very late in the day, and she's going to do all the editing and putting it on YouTube for us, and sending it to other platforms. It's always really, 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 really important to thank people, and for Penny for giving up her time today, because I know Penny is incredibly busy. She's got other things going on. But
and Jenny, fantastic.
Thank you all for joining, because without you, we would just be having a conversation amongst ourselves. And the reason why my camera keeps on going off is I keep on reading all your messages, which are, thank you very much for posting all the messages, but mostly thank you all for joining for today, because it was such last minute. I was panicking. I thought no one would basically come. So you've really, really surprised me.
After what you did, how can you panic for something like that? Come on.
Is it worth, because I think some people have had their hands up for quite a while, and if I take some questions in the order that they came in, and where Bridget had a question from the very beginning, but Bridget and then Nell and then Victoria, if we can just hear those questions, and then perhaps people who are still here can have a
answer them.
Feedback to that. Okay, Bridget first.
Hi. Questions. When can we put our questions? Where could we put our questions?
We're going in order. So Bridget's going to go first, and then someone, and then you, Nell. We'll just stay and answer your questions before we go.
Hi, can I just stress the point that air pollution affects people in rural areas, and also the consequences of all our choices in our daily lives, from people having wood burners in their first homes, second homes, buying a pizza from a wood-burning pizza oven, which is a big issue for me. It came as a great shock to me to find that I had cooked up asthma, having been in London for a long time and then moved here well over 10 years ago to suddenly develop asthma. There are also issues with PM2.5s, which don't even stop at the lung walls, they go through the lung walls. But can I also raise the issue, I think that it's a really important thing, is to get this, Dr. Nero was making this point, the issue of cost to the public purse. And actually that's something that the politicians really have to sit up and think about. It is the cost to the national health. It is the waste of lives when people are not able to fulfill their potential. And also that we are a very interconnected world. This country is spending millions or hundreds of thousands at least on subsidizing biomass, and forests are being cut down in, say, the southern states of America by companies such as Enviva, which are funded by big pension funds and all sorts of things. The pelletizing process of these things, these are not sustainable. Biomass is not a sustainable process, okay? It causes huge air pollution in the communities where this takes place. There's no obligation to regrow the native forests that are being chopped down. There's lots of traffic. The pelletizing process releases lots of wood fiber into the atmosphere. In amongst marginalized communities, look up Dogwood Alliance for that. It is then shipped over here and burned, and it is loopy. Okay. And it's because the politicians didn't get it right with the Renewable Energy Directive 2 that has fueled this. I'm sorry, it's a fantasy about wood being clean fuel. It's not. You know, coal actually stopped our forests being chopped down, and then we discovered that coal's a bad thing. But just to end, PM2.5 particulates are the largest source of them in this country, according to the government's own clean air strategy. 38% comes from wood and coal burning in this country.
Okay,
so there are many, there's also NO2, PM10s, etc. So we need to be aware to target all the different types of pollution, and just be aware about how our personal choices in daily life affect other people going way back. In Namibia, the city of Hamburg has just signed a deal with Namibia to take bushwood, which is used for cooking fuel for women, to take it and export it from Namibia up to Hamburg to fuel its biomass burners. It's an outrage.
Okay.
So it's a big global problem in all aspects. Okay. Thank you very much. And it's been a brilliant lunchtime discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Who's next? We just take a couple more.
Nell, then Victoria, and then Ruth. So Nell, please.
All right, yes. Hello.
Hi, Nell.
I'm not on my video, right? Nope, yep. Can you see me?
We can see you, we can hear you, yep.
Can you make your point, please, Nell?
This is my original question, okay? Indoor pollution can mix with outdoor pollution in vehicles and traffic. Yet this area of monitoring or measuring in the quality of air in a vehicle or pollution of air in a vehicle has never been investigated or monitored. A lot of discussion went on about the importance of monitoring, and yet this little area has never actually been looked at. Children sit on buses to go to school, breathing in filth from the road. The clothing that they may be wearing could be peppered with pollution, such as dog, house dust mite, whatever. And it all mixes inside the vehicle while the children sit there. The important point of all of this is that diesel particulates, I'm reading from this, right? Diesel particulates are mixed with house dust mite allergens with children with severe allergic asthma, and in areas high diesel exhaust have 6 times higher inflammatory markers in their blood. In other words, when you're mixing indoor and outdoor together, we're winding up with children with severe asthma winding up in hospital. The monitoring of air inside vehicles in traffic jams with children, buses, whatever, taxis, it needs to be monitored, and it has never been.
That's something that we can perhaps have a conversation with regarding a follow-up with either Jenny Jones or Simon Burkett about any kind of actions that we can take to sort of pressure governments to sort of create these devices. I think a lot of the problems with doing these kind of monitoring is that they're highly sort of sensitive and complex systems that not your average person can kind of build like a little CO2 monitor with stuff that's lying around in their garage. So they are by their nature sort of quite specified and quite specific. Certainly a campaign or something that we could do to try and raise awareness of the interiors of cars being highly pollutant places, especially where sort of people think that they're safe on the inside when they're not, they're actually sort of more exposed. That can be done with some form of campaign. I've noticed Ross has got a camera off, so I'm not asking her directly, but if anyone else has any suggestions on how we can actually tackle that particular thing regarding the monitoring inside cars, then please put them in the chat. If we take the next question from Victoria and then Ruth, and then I believe Tom had a question at the very beginning, but I was trying to get questions from women first. So we'll go to Victoria, please.
Thank you so much. Mine isn't a question so much as raising awareness. I'm very fortunate that I live in Warwickshire, but I did work in London, and I had the pleasure of meeting Jenny like 2 or 3 weeks ago down at Euston Tunnel. So I'm part of Stop HS2, which is some people still think that HS2 is a good thing, and it is so not. We are absolutely desperate because every minute we are losing our ancient woodlands, our hedgerows, our wildlife. And so I'm just briefly calling out to all of you. Rosie was talking about taking action. I'm also part of XR, and we do all sorts of actions, again, raising awareness, because we have to do it. We have to keep standing up. So many people are dying for different reasons, and we're just destroying our children's future and our grandchildren's future. One of the actions we're doing at the moment is getting everybody to write to their MP to ask them to support the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, which was due to be heard in March and again has been pushed back to May. But there's so many of us all over the Stop HS2 or HS2 rebellion. There are people, thousands, if not millions of people all over the UK supporting in lots of different ways. And yet, of course, there's still people who don't know about it or don't understand and think it's a good thing. I could spend, time explaining why it isn't. It's not going to be carbon neutral for 120 years. And the main thing, as I say, they are felling every day the very trees that are keeping us alive. And we are going to have the most massive problem with flooding, pollution, drought, and then poverty, food poverty, just to name a few.
Yeah.
So lots of love to all of you. And if there's I'm not very techie and I've been trying to add to the chat, but if I could be added to a link.
Absolutely, we can do that. And also, if you have any links.
On thousands of people to support you, because we do, we support transgender and Black Lives Matter, because it's everybody being downtrodden. Lots of love.
If you have any links to the work that you're doing with the HS2 campaign, if you could post them in the chat, then we'll get those sent around. If there were any campaigns or petitions to sign, and put them in there.
I'm trying to post it, but I've written a whole thing and it won't post, unfortunately.
I'm not
if
sure.
you go to chat and choose everyone and then type what you want and do the return key.
I did.
In that case,
it's just got stuck.
Victoria, I'll send you an email because it'll be on the registration list, and then you can send it to me and then we'll put that in the newsletter. And the next question, if we go to Ruth Fitzharris, please.
Hi, I'm a parent of a child who has asthma and I live in North London. And I was just sort of thinking about what Rosamund was saying about sharing photos and saying, actually, this is what is happening. This is what a child having an asthma attack looks like. And it is just so shocking. And part of what I've been trying to do at the moment is finding ways through art and writing and photos of conveying the actual reality of what it looks like when someone can't breathe. And Lorcan is 4. He's had 2 life-threatening asthma attacks and 2 further ones, and 10 other ones. It's trying to kind of get across to people kind of how serious it is. And the actual intervention in hospital is really, really frightening. There's things, tubes everywhere, monitors, and then once you get home as well, you can't just rest. They have to continue to be medicated every 4 hours with inhalers until they're weaned off salbutamol. So I think what I'm trying to say is just I'm talking to people here that care about the issue, is that just how kind of devastating it is, really. And I haven't been able to work, which as a single parent is quite a difficult thing. So both of us, it's affected my son's behaviour. It's given me insane anxiety. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that, really, as what the reality of it looks like when you are dealing with respiratory problems.
Thank you. And I know how traumatic it is to have family members who go through that experience. And I think you're quite right that we have a very fine line between not wanting to expose the vulnerability of people when they're in those sort of extreme situations with health crises, that we don't want to almost feel like we're using that for a political purpose. But it's similar to, there was a campaign that was done by the government several years ago showing visceral images of car crashes that was used to get people to put seatbelts on. And it literally, that's what it took, showing pictures of mangled cars on the street, for people to realize that this is the reality of what is the the consequence of not wearing a seatbelt. And I think that perhaps, even though it feels quite sort of very personal with some people and sharing that information, it might be the way forward in terms of getting people to wake up to the reality of what actually, an asthma attack is, what pollution means, someone dying from, air polluted related illnesses, I think is something that we should perhaps think about. Does anyone else have any other questions? We did have a question from Tom, but he's now left us. I think he was one of the first people who put any questions. Any further questions from anyone before we sort of close down the session? Nell.
May I just ask a question? How can we go forward to put questions to the group? What is the newsletter a virtual newsletter or physical newsletter, or how do we contact everybody?
What I will be doing is, following this session, is we will put a link to the video onto a YouTube channel. We will also send people an email with the chat. And I think it depends on how we actually want to move things forward. The plan is to send perhaps an update via a MailChimp network. But I think what can be useful is that if we don't just receive information, there's a place or a forum for discussing it. And that might take in the place of a Facebook group or a Slack channel. I think we're trying to move activists away from Facebook because of the distractions of the algorithms, in that once people kind of get into Facebook, they tend to get sucked into sort of commenting and chatting on other things. And it might be quite useful just to have a place to discuss this, in which case we'll probably just set up a Slack channel and then invite people to it to post different actions on. Here's a stream about working with air quality, here's a stream on Ella's Law, here's a stream on pollution monitoring, and just use that as a way to kind of grassroots start organizing. Because I think if there's anything to be gained from having the meeting today, it's that we do something afterwards, whatever that something has to be. We will, it will turn into either a conversation, which will turn into perhaps a lobby, which will turn into a petition, which will turn into a campaign. But I think there's no point in having all these people together, all these fabulous women on International Women's Day, and then not do something about it. So we will certainly be doing something about it. We're just not entirely sure about the structure of it, because Andrea only came up with the idea on Friday. So we're sort of running, hanging by the string, but we're certainly going to be moving forward in that direction now.
I was going to say, Dawn, I mean, at the very start of the conversation, and those sort of people have sort of gradually come into the meeting as it's gone along. We were saying with Dr. Maria Neira about sort of a national and international sort of women's led climate change environmental event, and Dr. Neira was saying, it would be great to set something up in here or in Geneva or wherever, but I think we do need to start finding ways, a bit like XR have done, of mobilizing large numbers of people to campaign. And if Rosie's starting this sort of process of developing Ella's Law, that's where we can come in on that, and the Clean Air Act and things like that, and sort of really mobilize masses of people to find ways to campaign to support that, because we've got to get the voices heard. And all the time, people don't hear the sort of the personal stories that Ruth has just given about what's happening to children. If they're removed from it, they don't realize the impact it's having on everyone else. And we've got to get in things in our local areas, like stop idling signs, where we've got places where people park, even in supermarket car parks. I've gone nuts a few times at supermarkets for not monitoring their car parks, where people are sat there with engines going, and you've got kids and babies, with their mums and family shopping, and so basic things like that. And also pushing this government to do things like, to get rid of diesel vehicles, both personal vehicles or vehicles for personal use, but also delivery vehicles. I mean, Ocado was saying they're trialing electric vehicles. We need, we've got to get that switch across to cleaner delivery, less delivery. So we're looking about more local solutions, buying local, eating local, food growing solutions and stuff like that. It's all part and parcel of the big solution. And it's gonna, it's going to take a long time for it all to come together, but we've got to take action on those most urgent things first. And as Maria was saying, Dr. Nira was saying, you know, the campaign against doing away with fossil fuels and doing away with wood burning and things as well in the short term, and diesel, clamping down on transport that's using diesel has got to be key to that. And obviously increasing our tree planting and greenery to absorb what pollution there is also part and parcel of that.
I think it's difficult for, sorry. Yeah. I guess it's difficult for organisations like supermarkets because they might not even realise it's a problem. So until you are standing outside their, you know, their gates with a sign saying you do realise this will cause deaths, they're not going to do anything about it because they would not willingly do something that would mean that they would lose customers. Their money is being made by people coming to buy things, so they're probably not even aware that it's an issue. And you're absolutely right that it's part of a bigger thing. The whole thing, the carbon footprint of food and transport and commercial goods that have flown around the globe. You know, there was reports of ridiculous things like fish that sort of caught in the Netherlands is then shipped over to India for processing and then shipped back to the UK because it's cheaper for the produce because the labour's cheaper over there. Well, it's not cheaper for the planet because you're burning, you know, huge amounts of this ridiculous thing to get them flown around. And I think it's all part of a bigger campaign. We all need to be very, very organised about how we do that. I think COP26, as mentioned before, is going to be a huge focus point, if not a flashpoint in the UK in November. And we need to try and get things moving where we can speak cohesively and a single voice, because you mentioned diesel and petrol. A few years ago, diesel was being touted as like, you know, the new green fuel without even, and now it's sort of, you know, a change face, because then people, when we were campaigning for the EU elections in 2019, people had actually gone out to buy diesel cars because they were told that was the greener option. And again, the communication and how this is actually sort of, people want to change, they want the best, most environmental solution, as long as it's not going to hit them too hard in the pocket. Because this is another thing that comes in, is like a lot of things are almost like a lifestyle choice because it's so expensive to implement, and we have to make sure that anything environmentally friendly is the cheapest chips, absolutely the first solution, so that everyone does it. Things like making local transport free, so people use buses rather than their cars for local journeys. It's all of these all together in a single cohesive, you know, way forward, and that's how we're going to save the planet. And I think we're going to do it if we keep together and work together and really just kind of use the energy that we've got in this conversation today to turn it into something real. So I feel incredibly proud, incredibly energized by everyone's conversations and inputs here, and just really to thank everyone for the session. I'm aware it's now 2:30. Unless anyone else has any other questions, I think we probably sort of would call it a day, unless there are any final questions that people have posted or would like to raise their hands. Am I seeing?
Thanks, Dawn again. Thanks, Dawn, for putting it. I keep on going off camera because I'm reading everyone's comments, and I thought it might be a bit rude. I just have to read. I'm really interested in the feedback. So thank you, everyone. And please listen out for the coroner when he comes back with his recommendations. I will make it known on Twitter, but there are, I've got to remember to go on Facebook, Instagram, but please, and some of your suggestions will be very helpful. We want something that the public is going to back and support. And it's going to be very crucial. And it's not just for the UK either. We hope we get something that can be used in other countries as well.
Absolutely.
And I am off now. I'm off to do air quality news, and I'm off to the cemetery. Like I said to people, it's 8 years today Ella was buried. So there's my reality. I'm off to the cemetery to just go and make sure, just have a few prayers and a few thoughts. That's the reality of when air pollution impacts you, I'm afraid. So thank you all for today. And yeah, it's been lovely to catch up. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Take care. Oh, if people want to save the chat, it's got the links, and we are going to be distributing it to everyone else. But if you want to save it just as
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosa. Oh, sorry, just turn this off. Hang on, I've just saved everything. Yes, I've saved everything.